Yo, monkeys, it's me, DDP, the king of bada bing, the master of Damica, the three-time world champion, WWE Hall of Famer, founder and CEO of DDP Yoga. Good God. And you, monkey, well, you're listening to 5 Moves of Doom. And that's not a bad thing. That's a good thing.
Hey everyone, my name is Chris Small, and on behalf of the 5 Moves of Doom, this is A and Good Day. All right, everyone, welcome to the inaugural episode of A and Good Day. I am Chris Small, the A in the A and Good Day, and joining me is the only Impact fan that I do know, the Good Day to my A, Dan the Beast Severncino.
Thanks for inviting me back, Chris. And you know what? Impact's pretty good if you missed all the bits with Dixie Carter.
Oh, my goodness, yes. We're here to talk about the Hardcore Championship. It's only fitting because, obviously, last week, Mick Foley made his return on Raw, introduced a brand new title, the ever-so-catchy 24/7 title.
Yeah, I wonder how much people in creative sat around in a room to come up with that title, and what second grader designed the belt as well.
They stayed up all night, but it was worth it. And it obviously harkens back to what we're here to talk about tonight, the Hardcore Championship, the WWF Hardcore Championship. It was a championship that was contested under hardcore rules, i.e. no DQs, no countouts, and falls count anywhere. Now, the Hardcore title was introduced in November 2nd, 1998, when Vince McMahon gifted the belt to Mankind, who subsequently lost it to the Big Boss Man. Were you watching when the title was introduced?
I did rewatch a bit of Attitude Era. I was a bit worried about going back into it because I always remember enjoying all the hardcore matches because you know, you had a bit of a laugh, but they did get pretty creative with it, and especially with the workers they had back around that 98 to 2002 period. So it was basically Vince McMahon gifting it to the corporation kind of Mankind before The Rock got on board, and you almost winced a little bit when Vince McMahon was saying that he saw Mankind like a son and he was giving him a gift.
It's a really interesting, you look back at the history of it, because Mankind actually never fought for that title again after losing it to Boss Man. So he was the inaugural champion, he was gifted this belt, and then even though it was done, apparently it was only supposed to be an actual just prop used in comedy angles, and they were just trying to, reference Mankind, Mick Foley's hardcore past while also paying tribute to it.
Well, I don't think they're actually expecting Mankind / Mick Foley to become as much of a main event player as he did with what followed the next 2 to 3 months.
It's true. You look at the timeline, and within a couple short months, he was going to be the WWF champion. So it is very true. And I also don't think, you look at around that timeline, I don't know if WWF at the time anticipated hardcore wrestling to be as big as it became mainstream.
Look, I don't think they did either, and especially with how creative they were able to get, because basically every time there was a hardcore match, especially if you look at the pay-per-views back between 99 to 2000, there was always almost like a bit of a gimmick where they would try something new with their hardcore matches. So despite the fact that it was the one title, a lot of matches weren't all that similar for the pay-per-views, and there was always something to set it apart.
So it starts as a comedy prop used in segments for Mankind to get him off of the back of McMahon in this whole corporation thing. Eventually, it becomes a bona fide title with the advent of hardcore wrestling, because in a rare moment of displaying laid-back tendencies as a company, WWE went, sure, why not? And let's just roll with it at that point. Were you a fan of hardcore wrestling around this time, and are you today? And what were your thoughts of any promotion other than ECW doing hardcore matches like that, the ones you were talking about being unique and such?
Look, I still remember watching whatever I could find of the Japanese death matches.
Oh, wow.
Not so much the... Well, look, I probably wish I saw a bit more of the Cactus Jack, Terry Funk, Japanese barbed wire death matches back in the late 90s, early noughties. But really kind of WWF actually did a good thing of just basically bringing you the best of it, really. They probably never went too long, and I guess also everything from watching them use the cake tins to the stop signs to even the fact that I thought it was always logical where they could actually do a bout shot with the Hardcore title, and because part of it was newspaper, at least they had a reason to kick out. Yeah, so just definitely really just seeing the ECW stuff, because around that time was very close to when Mike Awesome ended up being with ECW, where he'll do that crazy awesome bomb with a smaller opponent out onto the table ringside, as well as watching what New Jack could do ECW wise. But yeah, I can't really say many other organizations that I would watch other than the odd tape from Japan and the odd DVD that would get to Australia from that would show an ECW show.
So you weren't watching WCW hardcore title matches?
Oh, I can't say that I'm that much of a mark, but
So the February 24th episode of SmackDown in 2000, Crash Holly beats Test for the Hardcore Championship and says that in order to be truly hardcore, you must defend a title anytime, any place, and anywhere, provided a referee is in tow. And this becomes known as the 24/7 rule. Sounds familiar?
Mm-hmm.
Now, it doesn't have to be under the 24/7 rule, but I'm suspecting it might be. Can you tell me what your favorite hardcore title match/angle was?
Look, it was actually a really awful angle. Do you remember when Big Boss Man kidnapped Al Snow's dog Pepper?
Oh, God.
And made him eat it. As much as I hated that angle, I loved that it was such a good reason for the British Bulldog to come back to the WWF after his very small amount of time he spent in WCW after the Montreal Screwjob. He basically went over on the back of the Montreal Screwjob and then hurt his back at Halloween Havoc on a trapdoor they had for the Ultimate Warrior in the 98 Halloween Havoc, I want to say. So he returned, I want to say, was that about a year later?
Yeah, it sounds about right, because
Yeah.
99 was the Kennel from Hell match. Checks out.
Yeah, and just came back out of nowhere, got such a pop, had almost like a rap kind of British Bulldog theme to walk out to, because late 90s, why not? And beat him for the title, and I think it was just a really great comeback.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. So the belts retired on August 26, 2002, after being unified with the Intercontinental title when RVD, who's the IC champ at the time, beats Tommy Dreamer. So the title had about a 2.5-year life. Now, you were telling me just before we started recording, Tommy Dreamer, favorite hardcore champ, do you think, during this time of the belt?
Well, look, I was always a Raven guy growing up, so I was always a big fan of Raven, but I think just Tommy Dreamer just made it seem to matter a lot more. With Raven, as much of a hardcore personality and character he was, I just think Tommy Dreamer was the guy that just was able to elevate it that little bit more, whereas with Raven, it just felt like something he was doing, just for the sake of doing, because that's the gimmick, whereas Tommy Dreamer, I felt, could have gone for other bouts and could have been pretty much anything when he went into WWE from his run at ECW. So I just felt like it just mattered more with him.
Absolutely. So again, a 2.5-year life that the hardcore title had. A couple of fun stats during the run. So Raven has the most reigns out of anyone with 27 hardcore title reigns.
And that's why I say it didn't feel like it mattered that much with Raven when it's, gets up to 27.
11 more than Flair, though, so really, who is the best? Tommy Dreamer and Bradshaw both had personalized hardcore titles made for them near the end of the championship's life, simply because the belt had so much wear and tear by that point, it was falling apart. Now, do you remember Bradshaw's custom one with the Texas license plate and the bullhorns coming from it?
I think I forgot all about that one.
It was a rehash of the European title, apparently. So much like JBL's limo later on, they just looked at this title, repurposed it, and said, why not? And just put some horns on it because that is Texas.
Of course they did.
And 4 women have held the hardcore title. Trish Stratus, Molly Holly, Jazz, and most importantly of all, Godfather Ho, number 5.
Wow. I got to say, one's not like the other in all of that. And you do forget just how good Molly Holly was as a worker, and loved her superhero gimmick as well as her WCW stage as Miss Madness.
Now, what do you think the legacy of the Hardcore Championship is, and what do you think that WWE can learn from the success and the failings of the belt for the new 24/7 title?
Look, I think looking back, you've got to say that it was such a timepiece of the late 90s, early noughties products. I mean, you had weapons, you had rivalries, you didn't have as much blood as you probably thought you would have with the whole hardcore scene in the Federation at that stage, but I think it was definitely a sign of that whole grunge, no holds barred kind of attitude. And I think if they are going to take one thing from that, which with the 24/7 title, it's definitely just how easy it is to make a pay-per-view event or a live event just that much more unique. Because with the whole hardcore title, you didn't know if you were getting a comedy angle, you weren't sure if you were getting a creative hardcore angle. You know, it could have been anything and everything. And it was just such a great way of making that 10 minutes dedicated to that title stand out and make that show unique. Because that was definitely water cooler talk the next day of, did you see that backstage run-in, or how funny was that segment with the hardcore title? And hopefully they can learn from that and put it in the product going forward.
I think I agree. It's very true. It could be any and all things to any and everyone. I look at my favorite hardcore champion in that time, and it was The Undertaker in 2001, the end of 2001, because it still had that 24/7 rule, but no one was messing with him when he had that title. And I think very much like the 24/7 title, as you just said, you can do comedy segments, as we've seen the last 2 weeks, but all it takes is someone who has credibility as an upper mid-card or main eventer to win that belt and establish it as something other than a comedy prop for weeks or months or however they see fit.
Exactly. Like, one name that we haven't brought up is Steve Blackman. Like, how much more of a presence was Steve Blackman as hardcore champion with the kendo sticks and just what he was doing? It just sort of gave him... It was a push he needed just to make him seem more legitimate.
I agree completely. It's a very good point. And there are so many people who are in the locker room right now who could be that Blackman-esque type of person / succeed with that belt. It could elevate them to that next level, just like the Hardcore Championship did for so many people. And that's why, even only having a life of 2.5 years, people remember it so fondly, and clearly why WWE is trying to recapture that magic. Can they? I don't know. We're hoping for the best, though, because any success is good for the wrestling business.
Exactly. And with the 24/7 title being available for the performers on 205 Live and NXT, as well as Raw and SmackDown, out of all the people that I want to see have it, I'm going a bit left field, but I think NXT's Punishment Martinez, how worthy would he seem as a 24/7 sort of hardcore champion? I know they're not using the word hardcore because of the whole PG product that they're giving, but he just seems a guy so suited to holding it.
It would be an immediate impact right out the gate for him. So, anyways, that is the hardcore title, and this has been A and Good Day. Dan, thank you very much again for doing this with me.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And we will see you next week. In the meantime and in between time, make sure to like us on Twitter at 5_MOD. Until next